my pleasure to introduce our Voices from the Classroom panel. So this is something new that we are trying on the webinar this month. On occasion, we've had some teachers share with us some of their something that they were really involved with or had done before, but we've never done a panel. And so I am incredibly grateful to these three fine educators in Pennsylvania for agreeing not only to be on the panel today, but also very much to be my guinea pigs in doing a panel online. My goals in this panel was really to try and demonstrate for all of you that a saying that I've always said for a long time, and that is that there's not a one-size-fits-all to financial education. And so when one of my goals was to find folks that are taking different approaches to financial education. And so I've asked Lisa, who is a family and consumer science teacher in a very large suburban, relatively well-off area of Cumberland County to share information. Kathy Jo is joining us from Chambersburg Area School District. She'll tell you a little bit more. They're also a large high school, but a very different demographic than the students that Lisa has. And then we often, our project is not just for public school educators. We have lots of educators that are in diocesan and non-public schools. So Fred LaPointe is joining us from Lebanon Catholic to welcome and thank you for joining our panel. Lisa is a family and consumer science teacher from Cumberland Valley High School in Cumberland County, and it's a pleasure to have her on with us today. So Lisa, they're all yours.
Yes, thank you, and it's an honor to be a part of the panel and to be working again with Hillary on this webinar. So yes, as she said, I am a family and consumer sciences teacher. I'm the department chair. We don't have a large department, but I am in fact the chair, and our district is rather large in the center of the state, Mechanicsburg, PA, suburban with a diverse population and approximately, I think, pushing 3,000 students at the high school, so very, very large. Next slide. So I've been teaching for 16 years, and in each of my years of teaching, I have done something with personal finance and consumer skills. It fits well into all of the different things that family and consumer science educators teach, and we've called it lots of different names, and started out with courses that were like independent living based or living on your own. Sometimes it's just a general facts course or family consumer science course. And I was prompted just a couple years ago to change the name to just be, say, personal finance and consumer skills. And the business department runs a class that's similar as well. And they're both as electives. And we have met recently and talked about the similarities. In fact, we think that kids shouldn't actually earn credit for taking my course and for his course because they are essentially both the same. So we're no wars in my district, to be honest. We would love this to be a graduation requirement, and we would all need to throw, I think, some staff members towards that initiative if we were to do it. So you can see the course description there. I tried to make it kind of catchy so that maybe kids are drawn into it about learning about practical life. You can go to the next slide. And this next slide will tell you a little bit about like the modules that I'm using, and they are taken directly from the plant course or the voluntary model curriculum that's housed on SAS that the Making Sense project went together to organize. So I was part of those groups, and so relied on what I had done for years and kind of learned a lot from the diverse group of people that Hillary brought together, and really was happy with the end product and have been trying to utilize all that good stuff that we worked to do. I think that's good for that slide. We'll move on. specifically, though, I was asked to tell you about resources, and being that I've been doing it probably every year that I've been teaching for the last 16 years, some of them in middle school, I feel like I have, get tired of some of the same old things, or things become irrelevant. So it is nice, I think, like Kathy Jo said, to find free resources. You can't beat free, and certainly there are a lot out there. So the first of the free resources that I like is Taking Charge Today, which is featured on the next slide. And you can sign up to get an account and a password, and then they keep track of all your downloads for you. Certainly you can download them onto your desktop and use them there, but you can also see the file. Like just today I went in to look at my box and see what I had downloaded most recently, just because I wanted the exact names. You see them listed on the bottom of some of my favorite ones, and I do recall liking the package they put together for Money in Your Life, as well as the Statement of Financial Position lesson and the one on credit reports specifically. But there's a ton of stuff there, so if you find yourself being asked to teach something that you are not familiar with, I would suggest you check it out. They have a lot of free resources. They come with a PowerPoint and activity sheets and answer keys to go with it, and sometimes like a test bank. I'm definitely queen of like taking stuff a little bit from everywhere and making it my own, but it's a good place to start. Next slide. So I really love teaching all of the areas, but insurance is one that I saw as a challenge a little bit, because I don't think it's like always, from the start, from the get-go, very interesting to students. But I see that as a challenge, and have kind of looked for specific resources to help me do that. And when I can do that with the free programs, that's a bonus. So this this was put in my lap by the man from the Department of Insurance, David Bruno, and he sent the links that you see at the bottom. And what I've used specifically from here is the quiz, Name That Coverage, and the presentation on teen drivers. It definitely has some like recent statistics for teens, and I think that catches their attention, certainly because they are about to embark in the driving world. So you see where the arrow is there. When you click on those links, there's a little download the free module now, and it comes to your desktop in a zip drive form. So that's been a useful tool. Now this man, Mr. Bruno, lives close by, I assume, or works for the state, and I think he would visit your classroom. I know he's offered, and I've reached out to him. He already got back to me offering a day to do it. So that would be something you could consider if you happen to be in my area. All right, next slide. The next generation resources from Scholastic. I don't know how I actually stumbled across these, but they're a little tricky to find on your own, and so it's hopefully take a note of them if this is of interest to you. I like that they have videos. Specifically, I show the risk and disability income insurance videos. They're under the videos tab, and I think that they do a nice job of explaining both of those concepts. And under the lessons and resources, another thing that I really like is the Price is Right activity. It's under the health insurance tab, and it gives the kids a list of perils on the left-hand side, things that you might end up in the ER for, or routine procedures such as like a broken arm or a tetanus shot or stitches or brain surgery. I mean, they've did a wide range of different things, and then they have you like look at the prices on the right side and match them up. So it really does sort of show them the value of that, protecting yourself with health insurance. The next slide was just the wrap-up slide for me to be able to express some of my personal thoughts on teaching personal finance. And so again, I like what we've been doing with the 10 to 12 age group, but more importantly, I would love to see the material get in the hands of every student, and with a large population of students, it will be a challenge. We've had meetings as recently as yesterday, and this is really high on our priority list to organize our financial literacy course. So whether it's delivered by family consumer science, business, math, social studies, it really doesn't matter. I think it's great for kids. We are looking maybe at some blended options as well, maybe teacher-created blended options. Let's see. I think that's a pretty good summary of how I feel. I certainly have enjoyed hearing even the other panelists and speakers because I get new ideas all the time, but I would concur that the real life experiences really make a difference and kids love them. My kids probably are most excited or perhaps fearful of our mock interview assignment that we do, where I bring in usually administrators, sometimes like business people in the community, to hold these mock interviews for my class. And I would say that in their reflections, they're happy they did it, and it's a high pressure. They feel nervous about it, but in the end, they're thankful. So, any questions? Certainly, I'd be willing to answer them. But I thank you again, Hillary, for including me.
Well, thank you, Lisa. It's great to have you on. Lisa and I have been working together off and on with financial education programs and projects now for, gosh, I'm thinking probably 11 or 12 years. I'm benchmarking by how old my son is here. We've known each other since maybe before I even had him. And Lisa participated in our Governor's Institutes for Financial Education that we used to have during the summer, and then became a teacher mentor with those. And so Lisa and I have had the opportunity to work together a number of times. And sometimes she's been teaching personal finance, sometimes she's been embedding it in other classes when she hasn't had it in her schedule. And it's great to see, really where Cumberland Valley is going with this. So, question for you that's more sort of across the grade levels. So, you get students that are 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. What do you find is their sort of knowledge coming in? Have they gotten exposure to some of this content in the past, maybe in the middle school in an FCS course or elsewhere? Sort of, what do you see as their base knowledge, and what's being done, or what do you think should be done before they get to you to sort of lay a foundation?
Ooh. Well, that's a good question. It definitely, each group varies. Certainly, the group I'm currently working with, some of them are really sharp, and I feel like they've maybe gotten some advice, I suppose, or some information from their parents. And I know that we are doing some great things at middle school, specifically in family consumer science and business for our 8th graders. But then there's other kids, when presented with items, are like, oh, wow, yeah, I really struggled with this in middle school. It's like, and so I have kind of gone away from feeling bad if I've repeated something that some other teacher in some other time period has gone over, because, reruns are really not terrible for some of them, especially if they didn't master it the first time around. I do like the face-to-face component because of, you can kind of get a sense for like, oh wow, that didn't take long, so we can move on. But if we need more time, then we stay and kind of work on it a little bit longer. So I'm not sure if that answered all of it, but I could see us doing maybe some career planning in 9th grade, as meeting them with like, what's their 4-year plan, what are they going to want to do with the 4 years that they have in high school, and then maybe 10th or 11th grade, meeting them with some more specific things on like borrowing and saving and investing and insurance, to kind of couple with the part-time job that they might be taking on, and the college that or or post-secondary ed that they could be saving for.
To follow up on that question, Lisa, we had a question from one of our participants asking, do you by chance know what programs or resources your middle school FCS teachers are using for personal finance? Are they using like the intermediate level of Take Charge Today, or do you know what other resources they might be taking advantage of?
Well, yeah, I have had the advantage of, working with you on a lot of the projects that we have, so I certainly pass down everything that we've done, and I'm thinking when we built the, I don't know if that's live yet, Hillary, you'll have to let me know, but the iTunes course and had the high school stuff, I know we also did some middle school stuff too, and I know I passed that on to them as well. So the Farm Blitz that somebody mentioned in the first webinar, like there are certain things that I feel are more middle school oriented, and I do, often share that stuff with them in PD at my district.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, and we'll have you back on in a little bit for the rest of our, when we open it back up for the rest of the panel. So,
first of all, thank you all for being here. As Hillary has said before, I'm going to give you a little bit of background dealing with myself. I've been with the business department at Caches for approximately 25 years. I have taught many areas. I have done many things. My favorite class to teach is the personal financial management, and I am very passionate about and think it's very, very important for everyone to have this. Chambersburg Area School District is a rural farm area that serves a population of a 250-mile radius. It has less than 20% of the population having college degrees. Most are in farm or in manufacturing. Our school, our economically disadvantaged populations, around 53%. And we have a very diversified population with our students, and we have a lot that have limited English abilities. We have some students that are homeless, students who are taking care of siblings as well. Our area has 12 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, known as the Career Magnet, and the high school I'm at is known as Caches. And there's a total population in the district of 9,000 students, and Caches has approximately 2,100, 2,200 students. Next slide, please. The main course of finance for us is the Personal Financial Management, or what I call PFM. It is offered by the Business Department. It was started in 2001 when I became on contract here as a co-op coordinator, and a student came to me who was working at a financial institution. She approached me about having a class to teach students how to manage their money in their life, since students were forgetting to log their ATM transactions and they were getting notices about their accounts having insufficient funds. So the institution was the one that started it, and the student is the one that came, and then the next thing was we developed the course. PFM is offered to 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, and this is an interactive course. There is an interactive course, called Dollars and Cents, that is designed for our 9th grade students to get the basics of understanding personal money management and financial planning skills, along with how to be their own bosses. Personal financial management is where the students learn the practical money skills. They design their own personal financial plan. They select various savings and investment options. They find and use the information and recognize and victim-proof against investment fraud, identity theft, phishing, and scams. The course also teaches how the financial markets work, why they learn how to successfully manage their money now and in their future. Both courses are a semester in length and a half credit each as an elective. PFM is also half a math credit. In PFM, we usually have 4 courses each semester, and currently I'm the only one at Cassius that teaches the PFM course. Always looking for free materials for it, as we do not buy textbooks, and we are on a textbook cycle of every 10 years, so our supervisor had said to go find freebies, so that's what I have been doing for years, and I enjoy looking for new things and learning new things myself. The last book we bought was in 2002, and it actually kind of looks like a brand new book. Next slide, please. My favorite resources, and the one I use the most, is the NEFI High School Financial Planning Program. That has 6 modules, and the modules are in money management, borrowing, earning power, investing, financial services, and insurance. I also bring in guest speakers for various topics throughout the year, and it reinforces what they've already been taught. I utilize the materials from the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, the Pennsylvania Jumpstart Coalition, and the Visa Practical Money Skills. Both courses do not overlap. I will use one for one of them and one for the other, so that the kids don't come in and say, hey, we already did this. The next slide, please. The Keys to Financial Success has great materials to reinforce too, and I love the money skills activities. One of the other things that I use that I did not put up here is at the end of the PFM course, I give each student a consumer action handbook that you can get from USA.gov, and it is free when you order them through the USA.gov. The software at the bottom, we utilize basically the one to the right top of the financial football is the Virtual Business Personal Finance by H&R Block. Our school has a site, and it cost us $1,700. We have 6 business teachers, and all of us can use it in all of our classes if we are teaching either the personal financial management or the dollars and cents. When the students are playing this one, I love to watch them go through it, and at various stages, when they're finding a job, getting an apartment, they're buying furniture, they get their paycheck, then they get robbed, and then you hear the kids say, oh no, I got robbed. And the first time I heard it, I wasn't really realizing what they had said until I heard the students say, I just got robbed again. And evidently, when they don't buy all the things that they need to do with food and different things, it takes away their things, that they have to replace their items. And it's a real world scenario, and they love doing it, and I love watching them do it. The Financial Football by Visa is also one that I got free, and I also utilize more the stock market game in the personal financial management class. If you use that one, it is $15 per team. The students really enjoy that. I have used my experience in life myself with various events, and have tried to relay to them what is the best way of them going ahead to be successful. Next slide, please. My thoughts on teaching this course is I love real world. The kids like it. I have done at the end of my courses, I've asked them, how would you want me to change this course? And majority of time I get, don't. We like learning about real world. They want to know, they want to do right, and they want to get ahead. They want to have a good destination and a good life. I believe the course should be a state graduation requirement for all students. There's many hands-on activities and project-based activities that I do with them. Then I post them outside the classroom for everybody to see, and they love that as well. As a teacher teaching this course, I love teaching it. It keeps the kids or students engaged. It's fun, and I learned some tricks from them as well that are things that I didn't think about when I was first putting it together. So that is it basically in a nutshell for me. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Kathy Jo. If anybody has questions, please post them there in the questions tab. I see one already came in. Kathy Jo, do you mind sharing an example or two of projects that you display to others? You mentioned that you have them do projects.
One of the biggest ones, or there's two big ones I do. The first thing I do when I start doing with the stock market game is I start teaching them how to look for a good stock. And me growing up in Florida, I always used Disney because I grew up down there and I was in high school at the time when Disney opened. And so I knew all the background information on it, and I show them about looking at the PE ratios and looking at the 52-week high and low and what the rate of return is and that type of thing. When they do that, they have to do a PowerPoint on a stock that they want to invest in and look through the whole course of what they want to do. They have to kind of persuade the classmates to buy that stock. And when they buy that stock, they get bonus points with it. The drawback on it is sometimes they really, if they're real new with it, they can't find some of the information. So you're kind of showing them to go where the investor relations is on the website and looking at the news articles, and a lot of times with the extra reading they don't want to do it. The other one I do is usually around the holidays where they become an event planner, and they can do whatever kind of event they want, but they have to do it for 20 people. And this way they are buying the food for 20 people. They're looking at taxes on paper goods and things, and they have to be able to differentiate what it is. They're doing a place setting. They're learning about that. They're learning about what it costs to buy food, how much it goes up, and then we display those. So there's a lot of different things that I have them do. I had said it the first one about the saving change of, if they spend $1, keeping the coins and seeing how much they have at the end. I have had parents tell me at parents' night that their son has taken his stock market knowledge and he invested and ended up paying for his college. That doesn't happen for every kid, but it's something that they really get into and they really enjoy it, and they love seeing their items out on this long hallway, which is very active. So that's why I do it.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that information and sharing some of your favorite resources with our participants tonight. That's great. So thank you again, and we'll come back to Kathy Jo when we offer up some questions for all of our panelists after all three of them have presented. So just by way of a reminder, feel free to submit your questions at any time for all three of them. If you think of another question that pertains to Kathy Jo while our next presenter is talking, that's fine as well. We can adjust. So, and I'll come back and have the opportunity to ask questions of everybody in a few minutes. So, it is my pleasure to introduce our third teacher and educator that's with us today. Fred LaPointe is a computer business teacher from Lebanon Catholic School in the Diocese of Harrisburg. So, Fred, are you there?
I am here.
Wonderful. I'm turning things over to you. They're all yours.
Hello, everyone. And first, let me thank Hillary and the folks at the Making Sense Project for this opportunity to share some of my experiences teaching personal finance. Hey, and a big thank you to all the teachers out there who chose to attend this webinar. You clearly, you worry about, you're making an investment in your professional development. So by way of introduction, I've been a business teacher here at Lebanon Catholic for the last 7 years. And teaching has been sort of a second career for me, having worked in industry for more than 20 years. Our school is a bit of an outlier, as we're a small private Catholic school, and we're located in more of a rural area. Actually, it's beautiful Lebanon Valley, and we have a K-12 student population. Get this, it's under 400 students. Next slide, please. So being a smaller school, I wear a lot more hats, and I've been teaching business as well as courses in computer applications for both middle schoolers and high schoolers. And while our school doesn't have a personal finance requirement for graduation, we recognize that financial literacy is a must in this day and age. And I try to work some elements of financial education into my curriculum. My classroom also happens to be the computer lab, so I can often work in some online resources for my students so they can use them, and it teaches or reinforces some element of personal finance. Next slide, please. So the first thing, when it comes to resources, I want to make teachers aware of a terrific compendium of resources, namely an app on iTunes University, and it's called Pennsylvania Learns Personal Finance for High School. Now today, I'm just going to hit the main points on this, but on the Making Sense website, you can look at past seminars in 2016 and 2015. They go into a lot more detail on how to get this free resource and how you can apply it in your classroom. Now first, understand this is not really an app. It's rather a curated list of over 300 resources that you can use as you see fit in your classroom. And it was curated by the experts at the Making Sense Project, as well as personal finance teachers across the Commonwealth. And they're all free. Plus, you can use most of them not just on your iPads, but you can use these on your Chromebooks, on your Windows desktops, and your laptops as well. It's organized into 6 major categories. You have money management, earning income, borrowing money, financial services, risk management, and saving and investing. So for example, if you drill down to the third module on borrowing money, you'll find there's 7 different topics. Topics like building credit or credit reports. And each of these topics, you can drill down further and you'll find the resources. There's a short description of what the learning objective is, and these resources are great because you get a variety of media. For example, if we drill down in building credit, there's a video that explains how FICO scores are determined. There's an online interactive module from PwC, the big accounting firm, and it offers an interactive where your student will help Nadia apply for a credit card. There's a website that's going to explain how co-signing works for a loan and much more. So again, I use this app, and it's kind of like an index to quickly look up some interesting, some fun activities, something that will engage the students, and I can assign it. I can also assign these to my students. So look at this iTunes University, look for this app, Pennsylvania Learns Personal Finance, and it's definitely the place to start if you want to enhance a specific personal finance lesson, you want to add some variety, something different to your classroom. So again, a lot of you don't have to do all that Googling. The Googling has been done. This is a great resource for things that are going to be relevant to your classroom. Next slide, please. So what I want to talk about next, so again, I said I'm not teaching personal finance per se, but there's a lot of good free curriculum out there, and one of them that I really like is called Foolproof. And this is something that teachers can set up with a minimum of fuss and zero cost, which is always good. First, I found that there's a lot of really good content in this website. And secondly, they have very good tools for the teacher to manage the class and to track the students' progress online. And what's really refreshing is that they are talking through this curriculum in the voice of a teenager. It's almost a little bit snarky, but the people in the video are teenagers or college students talking about real-life situations, talking about situations that my high school students can relate to. So you look through these modules, you probably can't see it too well on the presentation, but there's titles like Kick Some Buck, which talks about credit scores. Here's another title called Sucker Punch, talking about the pros of credit cards as well as the cons when students are late in paying off those balances that just seem to get bigger and bigger. Each module takes anywhere between 30 to 40 minutes to complete, and students, they can pause, they can resume their work from one class to the next. And naturally, they have a little survey at the beginning to see what the student already knows, and then there's a quiz at the end of these modules, anywhere from 10 to 20 questions, and you can use to assess their performance. So let me talk briefly about the teacher tools. You have these online environments, and Foolproof, they made it really easy for students to create their own accounts. They can do this on their own. And what I really like is the teacher dashboard. You have a lot of control on how you set up the lessons. So you notice there are 18 modules. You can decide which modules you want to activate. You can decide which modules you want the students to work on. You can put them, arrange them in the order you'd like. You can set start and stop dates for participation. If a student fails, you can have them remediate the lesson. They can retake the quiz for a passing score. You can print out certificates and transcripts, things like that. So there's a lot I like about Foolproof. And I think, again, there's this element where you can mix and match. You can use the elements that you'd like to use with your students. Next slide, please. So next, I'd like to talk about a similar type of curriculum from the folks of EverFi, and it's kind of analogous to what I just talked about with Foolproof. It's structured a little differently. They have 9 learning modules, but they're similar. They're covering topics like savings and banking, taxes and insurance, similar topics. And they have a mix of videos, they have some cool features like a slider bar where you can figure out how you can increase your savings rate, compound interest versus simple interest. And there's an interactive game at the end the students like called EverFi Life. So again, this is something you could, it's a bit more structured in that it's probably best if you go from savings to banking, go steps 1, step 2, step 3. But it's something, again, variety. So with some classes, I'll use Foolproof, and then I look at some other classes and I say EverFi might be a better match for those students. And finally, upon completion, students can, if you score higher than 70%, they get this fancy EverFi certification that you can print out. So again, there's a lot of tools out there, complete, comprehensive curriculum. But again, you can kind of mix and match and decide what you want to use in your classroom. Next slide, please. So Hillary, he challenged us. She asked us, what are our thoughts on teaching personal finance? And for me, it's important. It's really, I'm kind of passionate. This is the students. It's going to affect the students' future happiness. And I kind of challenge them. It's like, these are what you need to pay attention. Yes, you have to do math. If you want to be a grown-up, these are the skills you need to know about so you aren't getting taken advantage of. You aren't buying this balloon mortgage that all of a sudden you can't afford your house payments. And finally, this idea about, hey, if you're grown up, you got to start planning. You got to have a horizon. You got to think about saving up, emergency funds, things like that. Basically, you got to start budgeting your future. And I want to tell the folks out there, look, we don't all have to be experts. There's tons of free resources out there. There's plenty of tutorials, interactives, online tools out there. Suggest, find other teachers, network other groups and associations. And there's also terrific professional development opportunities out there. There are seminars, workshops offered by the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. There are the Wharton School, they have a program. They have a summer program. So again, look for there's lots of professional development opportunities, and many of them are free. And the final thing I note in what I found, real world, I heard that earlier in the last two presenters, get folks from the community. These people are happy, eager to talk to your students. People at banks, credit unions, they're looking for those future customers. Entrepreneurs, and there's some terrific programs from organizations like Junior Achievement, and they can help supplement some of the personal finance lessons and curriculum that you're offering. So in summary, I would say there's a lot of tools out there, and hopefully when you having seen this presentation, you recognize that some of the work has been done for you and you can take advantage of those. And that's it, unless there's a next slide, Hillary.
Thank you, Fred. I appreciate you joining us tonight and rounding out our group of panelists here. Fred's contact info is here on the screen, and again, it will be in the packet. So please start posting your questions that you have for our panelists, anything that you would like to ask them about teaching personal finance and their approach in their school or in their district. I will start asking them all a few questions in a minute, but I wanted to follow up first with a question just for Fred. So you've really had the opportunity to teach students at both the middle and high school level, and I know this is a question that comes up a lot, is sort of, how do things vary, in terms of like the resources that you need to use, or, the hook that you need to get them interested is, be curious your thoughts on that, especially being in a K-12 school there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. And well, if you look at the big picture, our middle school students are going to have a shorter attention span. They're more of a concrete learner, and they're going to have less life experience than high schoolers, naturally. And talking about money tends to be more theoretical than practical to them. And to keep their interest, I try to find activities and resources that they can relate to. Things that are short, use language that doesn't go over their heads, shopping trips, birthday money, allowances. Many have babysitting jobs. They've got to pay for their dance tickets, needs versus wants, and so forth. For example, there's a great online game. I want to introduce students to the concept of interest and savings. There's a great online game called Farm Blitz, and the middle schools love to play it, and it cleverly introduces these concepts, and it's right on their level. But when you talk about high school students, they obviously have a more active money life, and they respond to topics about basically getting out on your own. How do I get my first credit card? What's involved in buying and maintaining an insured car, renting an apartment, learning about college loans, and how they can be planning their own budget. And also, this is the smartphone generation, and we're living in an age of identity theft. We got huge data breaches like the one recently at Equifax. So there's definitely some traction when you talk to high schoolers and you talk about how to keep safe, and they learn about these financial rip-offs and the scam artists out there. The final thing I'd like to say on this is that, look, every classroom is going to be different, with a mix of different personalities, different learning styles. And as teachers, the better we get to know our students, the better we can find the right materials that are going to engage our students.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And I think it's a great vantage point that you have there, with a variety of students in your school. I'm going to return to our panel. So, this isn't like we're in the same room and I can just point to somebody and what have you. So bear with us as we take a moment to sort of transition a little bit, but Lisa, I was curious. What do you, if you had a magic wand and had control over education policy in America, what would your ideal financial education look like for students? Kathy Jo mentioned that she would love to see this be a required course statewide. So, curious your thoughts. Like, if you could sort of develop the ideal financial education, you were superintendent of schools, or in a district, or you were anointed queen of education in an area. What do you think that would look like? And really, K to 12. You've got little ones at home. You know the power of starting this at an early age. What do you think about financial education in an ideal world?
Some very deliberate things can be done at an elementary school level. I think certainly that would be cool. I know our district has all the kids go to BizTown in 5th grade and does utilize junior achievement. I know they're on the boat and are making strides to incorporate that. As you move to a middle school level and high school level, of course, it would be great to get the information in front of the students, for the students to engage and interact with the information as often as possible. But I wanted to bring up the point of personalization. It's so big these days. Sometimes I think a real what I need type of program where maybe a kid gets started and they can buzz through all these levels because they understand all of that, and then they need a little bit more time on something else. Now that certainly would be a really phenomenal kind of online or blended type way to deliver some of that material. And I think about things like that with a district as large as the one I've spent the majority of my years in. But certainly, if we were to do the face-to-face approach, I'm very into collaborating and having people split it up. I mean, it'd be cool if it was kind of a collection of course of study that every kid already does have to take economics in 11th grade, and maybe they cover the taxes, and every kid takes a personal finance class that is taught by business or FCS, or even half and half. We could plan it out for kids, I think, and give them some direction, but there's all kinds of options. That's why I keep hanging around, Hillary. I think we're going to come up with something great here soon.
Awesome. So next question, I'm going to pose it to both Kathy Jo and then to Fred. I'm curious what you think is your toughest topic to teach in personal finance. And is it tough because of the complexity of the content? Like, is there one topic that you just have a really hard time getting students to wrap their minds around? Or is there one that's just really hard because they don't care and they don't see the application for themselves? Or perhaps it's just because you haven't found good resources. So, Kathy Jo, are there any topics that you find to be, more challenging than others to teach?
Again, it depends on the year, the makeup of the class of students, and the ability levels. But I would say probably the hardest is the credit cards and figuring out how to figure out their payments and their interest, or what to charge them, what they're being charged on a daily basis or average basis, whichever the case may be. But when it comes to math, most of them don't like math, and you just have to find a way to make it fun for them. And I do a lot of things that I've done it when I've had my administrators and observing, and they get a kick out of it. But I don't like to have to feel like I'm an actor at the time, when I'm doing it. But we are. That's what we do. And if that's how it motivates them to like learning how to do compound interest, how to do the the rule of 72. Something as simple as that, they have a difficulty of understanding it. And I have not seen a whole lot of information on the rule of 72, but I just throw it out there so that they know a little bit more about what are you looking for, and with the interest rate so bad that, you know, it doesn't really help them too much, because the goal of getting more money is not going to be there until the interest rates are higher.
Right. Yeah, that is challenging. I think teaching kids about saving and just, sort of savings accounts and, certificates of deposit is hard right now just because of the economic climate, right?
Right. And the
it's
other
hard
thing,
to convince them of the power of compound interest when you're like, oh, wow, look, it'll grow by 5 cents.
well, the thing is, you're teaching them to start saving young. The younger you are, the better it's going to grow for you. And that was true 10, 12 years ago. But it's not the case today. It's going to take forever. And just with everything that's been going on, even with pension plans and everybody being investing, right now the stock market is great, but what's going to happen down the road? Another year, 2 years, we don't know.
Absolutely. So Fred, I'm going to offer you up that question of what's hardest, or I'm going to toss another one your way if you care to answer that instead. And maybe they're sort of hand in hand, but one of the things I think is challenging, even for me, who lives and breathes this stuff every day, is keeping up with what's evolving and what's changing. It's because of my relatives that are younger than I am, and hanging out with folks that are a little cooler than I am, that I got Venmo on my phone to be able to send money to folks. And I will admit that I was not the first in my family to deposit a check by taking a picture of it with my phone. So those are all things that we as educators, it may not be our first mode of wanting to do things, but how do you keep up with that? How do you keep up with the trends, especially what's going on in technology? You're a tech guy. What are your thoughts on that with students and making sure that you're keeping up with the latest personally so that you can talk about it in the classroom?
Oh, that's a great question. There's definitely one constant in personal finance, and that's that there's going to be change. No pun intended. So first I'll say, the people who are attending this webinar, sign up for the rest of them. These webinars offered by the Making Sense Project, it's a great way to hear from the experts and to stay current. And also there's other, each week there's like these new financial education tools coming out from all these different sources. So there's some great newsletters, Twitter feeds out there. Folks should check into communications from the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. And another excellent one is the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. And you'll find the links in the those attachments. Plus, there's financial experts out there talking all the time on money topics. David Ramsey has a YouTube channel. Laura Adams, she's an MBA, and she has a top-rated podcast on iTunes since 2008, and it's called Money Girl. So you can be driving to work listening to some podcasts. And finally, look, I was talking earlier about, free professional development programs out there. The Federal Reserve in Philadelphia, they have teacher training workshops all throughout the year. Wharton School of Business, they're doing things with Price Coopers Waterhouse, and they've had 1 week seminars in the summer, and they've attracted teachers from all over the United States, financial education teachers. So there's opportunities out there, and I would just say, sign up, get on the list.
Great recommendation. Thank you. Well, thank you all three for being with us both this afternoon and this evening. Really appreciate hearing directly from the trenches, if you will. You truly are our heroes in all of this, delivering this and staying current and constantly looking for and trying out new resources. And I applaud each of you for what you're doing, and very much thank you for joining us this evening to share a little bit of insight with our participants. So thank you very, very much, and I hope maybe we can do this again some other time.